friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about the lovely, the beautiful Anthurium pallidiflorum. This gorgeous thing right here, known for its long, strappy, velvety leaves, one of my favorite anthuriums, and I'm going to be telling you all about how I care for it and keep it happy and healthy and growing strong. So, before we get into it, I just want to say if you're new here and you don't know me already, hi, my name is Emma and I make houseplanting content all over the internet. So if you want to follow along with my houseplanting journey and maybe learn something along the way, stick around, watch some more of my videos, and subscribe to my channel. If you're not new here, thanks for coming back. I really appreciate it. Let's get into it. Anthurium pallidiflorums are native to Ecuador and Colombia and Central America areas, and they are known for their long, gorgeous, strappy velvet leaves. I honestly was not that big of a fan of strappy anthuriums until I figured out that the pallidiflorum is velvety. I do love myself a velvety anthurium, and so that plus the strappiness, I was like, okay, I can give that a go. And now that I have this one and I have watched it grow, I am in love with strappy anthuriums. I'm so tempted to get some more. It's been great. Because honestly, when I first got this one, this was the biggest leaf I had on it. And now, oh, it's gonna be hard to show you. This is the biggest leaf on that part. Because I've got two plants in this pot. One's smaller and one's bigger. This is the last leaf on the smallest one, which is easily double in size. Amazing. Like, what's not to love about that? And it tends to grow quite quickly. I've even got a new leaf in there at the minute, which is super exciting. And I found they're fairly easy to take care of. Probably one of the easier anthuriums. I've not had any issues with this one so far, and I have just absolutely loved growing it. It's easily becoming one of my favorite anthuriums. And I'm pretty sure they're actually coming down in price as well. They are so easy and quick growing that it's not a surprise to me that they're lowering in price and becoming more accessible. But honestly, I was surprised that I hadn't heard of one for so long because they are so freaking easy. I love this one. It is so great. It's on the fast track to becoming potentially my favorite anthurium. The pallidiflorum is fairly adaptable light-wise. It doesn't need anything too special. Of course, its ideal is bright indirect light. That is where it's going to grow its very best, but they can tolerate things slightly outside of that realm as well. If it's getting like 2 to 3 hours of dappled sunlight in the morning or something, it can absolutely love that. Too much more than that and you could risk scorching these beautiful leaves, which you don't want to do. You want your anthurium to look as nice as possible, so avoid prolonged hours of exposure to direct sunlight. They can also tolerate a little bit on the lower side. I think mine is about in medium indirect light. It actually lives just above here. You can see it's not incredibly bright in this space. It's kind of medium, especially since I live in the UK. We're not getting tons of sunlight. I'd say it's about 2.5 meters from a southwest facing window, so it's getting as much light as it possibly can, but not tons. And it is still putting out growth relatively quickly as well. I've got some new growth in here at the minute and I'm very excited about it. I am in the process of getting a grow light to go over this whole section, which I think will boost the light on this one, but as of right now, and for the entire time I've had it, it has not had any grow light on it and it's been absolutely fine. I tend to water my pallidiflorum when the top few inches of soil are dry, maybe like 3 inches or what's that, like 7 centimeters or so down. I'm usually measuring with my finger, just sticking into the soil, feeling whether or not it is dry, and if it is dry, giving it a bit more of water. I also can tell by picking the plant up and feeling how heavy it is. Like, I very recently watered this one and so it is feeling quite heavy now, and I don't think I'll need to water it again for a little while. Of course, the frequency of which you are watering your pallidiflorum will vary depending on the time of year. That's why I don't like to suggest a schedule when watering this one, because it will change depending on your location, your home, the time of year, how much sun it's getting. All of that kind of stuff can affect the rate at which the soil is drying, and so I much prefer to go off a soil dryness schedule rather than a specific time period schedule in order to not end up overwatering this one. Because overwatering is more about watering the plant too soon after it has been watered previously when it is not yet ready for more water than it is about the quantity of which you do water. That being said, you don't want it sitting in a puddle of water at the bottom of the cache pot, so when you do water, make sure you are dumping out the cache pot to make sure it's not sitting in the puddle and thus getting overwatered and potentially leading to root rot. I do err on the side of underwatering of this one. I think that is what has caused these bit of dry tips I have on a couple of the leaves. I am getting better with it and slowly learning. I think this is the newest leaf it's put out for me, and as you can see, I don't have a brown tip on it, so we are getting better with it slowly and learning as we go with this one. But it is really just about making sure that it doesn't dry out all the way and stay dry for too long, because that's also not very good for the plant. Of course, they prefer the temperatures to be fairly warm. They're coming from Central America, Ecuador, Colombia. It is warm down there, just generally, and so their ideal is between 20 and 32 degrees Celsius or 70 to 90 Fahrenheit during the day. They do like it quite hot, they can tolerate it quite hot, and at night temperatures as low as 15 degrees Celsius or about 60 Fahrenheit are absolutely fine for this one. Much lower and it could suffer with cold damage, so you want to avoid lower temperatures if possible. All of that being said, my home this entire winter has been about 18 degrees. We don't keep it that hot in here. As much as I would love it to be 25 in my home all the time, that is not a reasonable ask with the cost of electricity. And so around 18 is where it's been most of the winter, and it still put out new leaves, so they can tolerate on the lower side, but they'd obviously prefer it to be warmer if possible. I am looking forward to the warmer months with this one and seeing how well it does, because if it's still putting out new growth over winter when it's cooler and darker, as soon as the summer hits, I'm sure it's going to just blast off with new growth, and it's just gonna be so great. I love watching the leaves growing on this one so much. They do like a good bit of humidity as well, not surprising. They are epiphytic, and so humidity is quite important to them, and ideally they'd be getting at least 60% humidity to thrive their best. My home tends to be between 60 and 80%. I think right now it's 70 something, and it's loving that. I don't feel like it is too low for this one, but if your home is naturally a lower humidity, you can supplement it by grouping plants together, bunching them, because that naturally boosts the humidity, or you can get something like a humidifier to boost a bigger area and get the numbers up in that 60% range. I personally keep fertilizing this one all year round because I have created an artificial environment in my home. It is warm, it is bright, and my plants are still growing a lot of the winter time. They're still pushing out new leaves, and so I continue to fertilize because they are still growing. If you find that your Pallidiflorum is slowing down in its growth or even stopping over the cooler months, you can slow or stop your fertilizing, and it would be absolutely okay with that. In fact, I think it would probably like it. You don't want to be fertilizing plants if they do go into dormancy over winter, because it can cause issues like root burn. I also suggest that if you are fertilizing with all-purpose fertilizer, that you reduce the strength to half strength, because it is not suited for houseplants and it can be quite harsh on houseplants. But if you're using a houseplant focused fertilizer, just use it at the recommended strength and it should be absolutely fine. As an epiphyte, the Anthurium pallidiflorum is going to want a really chunky, barky soil. They like to have lots of aeration in there, and big chunks of bark allow there to be nice big air pockets in that soil. And it also allows it to be super well draining. You don't want it to hold on to too much moisture, so finding a soil with lots of air pockets with bark and perlite, pumice, stuff like that to really help the drainage is super important for these ones. I personally have mine in Soil Ninja's Anthurium and Orchid Soil. Obviously it's an Anthurium, it's loving it. It's not had any issues in that so far. So feeling really good about that soil. You probably won't have to repot your Pallidiflorum more than every 2 or 3 years. They're okay with being a little bit more root bound. I also suggest a bit of a taller pot for them. I find Anthuriums like a taller pot because they grow kind of vertical root balls, and so having a nice tall pot is good. Also, because this one goes down so much, having it in a taller pot allows it to go on a shelf and not be like too bottom heavy, if that makes sense. Like, it won't tip over as easily as if it were in a shorter pot. Propagation of Pallidiflorums can be done in 2 main ways. The first way is through pollination. Like most Anthuriums, these put out flowers. You can collect the pollen from one flower when it's in the male stage and then put it on a different flower in the female stage and grow berries. That is a really, really long process, and then you'll be growing the plant from seedlings, which is a little bit more difficult, so it wouldn't be my top recommended form of propagation, but it is still doable, so you can try it if you'd like. The easier way to propagate this one is through division or stem cuttings. These ones grow quite nice stems, and you can really easily see the nodes on them, so you can take a clean sharp knife or scissors and cut like just below a node and root that piece. It should work perfectly fine. I personally would root it in sphagnum moss, but you can pick whatever propagation medium you like, and then once the cuttings have grown roots, you can put it in your medium of choice and you're good to go. Got a new Pallidiflorum. Unfortunately, Pallidiflorums are toxic like all Anthuriums. You should try and keep them out of reach of your pets and your children. I'm pretty sure they're toxic to dogs, cats, and humans. So if you can, keep it out of reach. Luckily, because they do hang downwards, you're probably putting them on a high up shelf, and so they will tend to be out of reach, but you want to make sure that your animals don't have access to them, because ingestion can cause pain, irritation, and I think even kidney issues, so avoid that if you possibly can, because you want to keep your plants whole and your pets and kids safe. So that is it. That is everything you need to know about the Anthurium Pallidiflorum and how I take care of mine to keep it happy and healthy. It has honestly been such a good grower for me, and I've found it to be one of the easiest Anthuriums. I'm honestly surprised that they aren't more popular. They have gone down in price a lot in this past year, but I'd be surprised if they don't go down further carrying forward. So if you're tempted to buy one, definitely recommend it. I really, really love this one, and I think you should too. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up down below and leave a comment on other houseplants you'd like me to talk about in the future, and subscribe for more. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to keep growing. Bye!